Hey everyone, it's Josh from Second Ponce. I'm glad to be with you again virtually. And today, I want us to begin to think about this thought: God is limitless. I know that's kind of big to say because we're people, we're humans, and we do have limits. Just about everything around you has a limit, but God doesn't. God is limitless. Now, I don't know, but I want to ask, you have any favorite movies? Oh man, I have a slew of them. I absolutely love movies, but I really love movies that have sequels. The reason I like sequels is because you already have an idea as to the mindset of most of the characters in the movie. But sometimes I would have watched a movie so much that I began to think of a simple character a certain way. I begin to think that I know the character and I know how they would act, the good things they would do, and the bad things they would do as well. But the truth of the matter is, a movie is made up of characters who, guess what, are not usually real. Yeah, they're real people, but they're playing and pretending to be something that in reality they are not. Here's the truth. Many of us, when we engage on social media, many of us do the same thing. We pretend, we act in such a way that may not be a real portrayal of our lives. Friends, this is the truth. Many of us do have some embarrassing moments that we do not tell other people about. I, for one, remember being in the 5th grade at an assembly and they called me on stage and I fell down. I don't tell my wife that. I didn't tell my wife that when I was dating her. But the thing is, everybody has some embarrassing moments. And there's sometimes in your life when you have these embarrassing moments, people will not allow you to live down those moments. But the great thing about God is that God is always working behind the scenes to lift you up. And so today, we're going to talk about this guy named Moses. Moses' life could definitely be a movie. Think about this. I'm going to give you a snapshot of his life. At the age of 4, people were trying to kill Moses, and he was hid in a basket. Although Moses is a Hebrew, he was raised by an Egyptian family. Moses has gone from eating hot dogs to eating steak, but he never forgot that he was a Hebrew. And yet it's going to be today in Exodus chapter 2, verses 11 through 15, that we're going to fast forward Moses' life. We're going to see Moses around the age of 40. And we're going to see today that through Moses' life, God proved to have no limitations. God proved to be limitless. Moses doesn't have to pretend because he understands that it's only by God's provision that he has ever even made it to this moment of his life. And my hope is that for all of you, that after hearing this message and discussing the answers to these questions, that you will feel the urge to trust and to depend on God, because God is limitless. And so follow along with me in Exodus 2, verses 11 through 15. The text says, "Many years later, when Moses had grown up, he went out to visit his own people, the Hebrews, and he saw how hard they were forced to work. During his visit, he saw an Egyptian beating one of his fellow Hebrews. After looking in all directions to make sure no one was watching, Moses killed the Egyptian and hid the body in the sand. The next day, when Moses went out to visit his people again, he saw 2 Hebrew men fighting. 'Why are you beating up your friend?' Moses said to the one who had started the fight. The man replied, 'Who appointed you to be the prince and the judge? Are you going to kill me as you killed the Egyptian the other day?' Then Moses was afraid. 'Everyone knows what I did.' And sure enough, Pharaoh heard what had happened and he tried to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in the land of Midian." Friends, in Exodus chapter 2, verses 11 through 15, we see a couple of things that we need to notice about Moses' movie of his life. The first thing that we notice is this: we see Moses' zeal. You may ask, or I may ask you really at this time, what do you think zeal is? Friends, to be zealous, it means to have great energy, to have great enthusiasm in pursuit of a cause or an objective. It means to really love something, to be passionate about something. And that is Moses. Moses may have been raised by some Egyptians, but Moses cared deeply about being a Hebrew and the Hebrew people. And so he never forgot his heritage of being a Hebrew. But Moses, at this moment, in verses 11 and 12, he notices how hard the Hebrews are being mistreated and worked, and he's so passionate, he's so rooted and zealous towards this heritage that he kills the Egyptian who was mistreating the Hebrew. Now, friends, I know we all have passions. I know we all have things that we believe God has called us to. I hope many of us would never want to see anybody be mistreated, but please, don't kill anybody. Moses was so zealous that he committed bodily harm and X'd out this Egyptian. But friends, what we're going to see as we keep traveling along in this text is that God is able to use even the worst things about us to lead us directly into the purpose that he has for us. We notice Moses' zeal, but yet we also see Moses' rejection. Friends, I don't know about you, but many of us are rejected by so many things. We don't always get the jobs we want. We don't always get the grades we want. Some guys may not always get the significant other that they want or girls that they would like, and the girls and vice versa. But yet I too have even been rejected just like Moses, and I do believe if you look over your life, you too probably have been rejected once or twice. I remember being in my freshman year in high school, and I was lucky enough, and I do say lucky, to make the varsity basketball team. And I remember being on this team and being treated like an outsider because I was. I was the youngest one on the team. My voice hadn't changed yet, so I was always speaking very high-pitched. And all of these guys had played together for multiple years. And I remember always sitting at the end of the bench and never having many friends. But I had to understand, I just had to wait my time. I had to understand that God has moments that he will allow all things to work out in our favor, but he also has moments that we will experience some rejection because he's birthing and growing some things inside of us. And friends, we just have to sometimes face the fact that God does not always give us what we want when we want it. See, in Moses' life, he's shown this because right there in verses 13 through 14, Moses desires to be accepted by his people, the Hebrews. But yet, as he sees people fighting his fellow Hebrews, he goes up and says, "Hey man, why are you beating up your friend?" But yet, this fellow Hebrew says, "Hey, are you going to kill me like you killed that Egyptian?" His fellow Hebrew at the moment did not wrap his arms around him. His fellow Hebrew at the moment did not tell him, "Hey man, I'm glad to see you." His fellow Hebrew rejected him. And sometimes, friends, we too are rejected simply because people misunderstand us. And sometimes when we are misunderstood, we tend to try to pretend we get the notion to hide ourselves with the hope of fitting in. But yet, even at this moment, Moses, he's not able to hide, but instead, Moses is angry. Moses is sad. Moses feels so many an array of emotions, and you know what Moses decides to do? He decides to run away because he recognizes that people know his wrong. And we see Moses fleeing right here in verse 15. In the first part, it says, "And sure enough, Pharaoh heard what had happened, and he tried to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in the land of Midian." Friends, at this time of the movie, that's Moses' life. He's running for his life. The Hebrews, who are the people who birthed him, did not accept him. And the Egyptians are now attempting to kill him. And so now all these people, the people that he was brought up by, the people who he wanted to be accepted by, they have turned their back on Moses, and he has no one else. But thanks be to God, Because when people leave, God always stays. Thanks be to God that when people desert you, God is still divine and will always deliver you. Thanks be to God. Because what we see is that, yes, Moses had great zeal. It was almost unhealthy zeal. He killed in his zeal. Yes, we see that Moses, yes, was rejected. Moses has ran away, but you better know that God took all of these events to reveal to Moses his purpose. You see right here in Exodus chapter 3, verses 9 through 10, we see God revealing Moses' purpose when God says, "Look, the cry of the people of Israel has reached me, and I have seen how harshly the Egyptians abused them. Now go, for I am sending you, Moses, to Pharaoh. You must lead my people Israel out of Egypt." Moses killed a guy, buried him in the sand. He's been rejected. The Hebrews and the Egyptians don't like him. He's running away. But God stops him and reveals to him that he is going to be the one that actually leads the children of Israel out of bondage. Friends, if any one of you desire to be great in life, you got to understand that to be great, you cannot allow rejection to hinder you from your greatness. God is not only limited to the good times of our life, but God is still working even in the crucible of our suffering. God is still working even in the moments of our rejection. God is still working even in the moments when we're misunderstood. And we know this because Paul tells us in Romans 8 and 28 that, and we know that God causes all things to work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called to his purpose. God noticed everything about Moses, the good, the bad, the happy, the sad, but yet God used it all for his purpose, that God would ultimately get the glory. Friends, what are you hiding that God can use? What are you pretending to be while stifling who God made you to be? I want to challenge each of you to not hide from an all-knowing God. And if you don't have to hide from God, you certainly don't have to hide from people. Our sermon in a sentence is this: God can use the undesirable moments in your life to birth your purpose. Friends, don't bury what God can build on. And so in reflection today, I want to ask you a couple of questions. The first one is, do you find yourself pretending much? The second question is, Moses had a crazy life, but God continued to provide for him. In what way have you witnessed God continuously providing for you? The third question is, Moses, yes, was rejected, but in what way can you cope better and process the rejection that you may experience? My last question for you is this: Romans 8 and 28 proves that God is limitless. But have you witnessed God using the challenging moments in your life to reveal his greater purpose for your life? Have a good discussion.